Welcome back to Get Up. It is time for some Graziano notes. Dan Graziano, let's talk about what you're hearing there from the NFL owner meetings. And let's start with the 18-game season.
A lot of talk about the 18-game season, as there has been the last couple of times we've had these meetings. The owners want it. They want to expand the regular season to 18 games, shorten the preseason to 2. The current CBA, which runs through 2030, expressly prohibits any further expansion of the regular season, so they'd have to negotiate that with the NFL Players Association, would have to redo the CBA effectively if they want to get that done before 2031. NFLPA just elected a new executive director. We'll see where that goes, but it's certainly something the owners want. Browns owner Jimmy Haslam, talking here yesterday, said Deshaun Watson has a great chance to be the Browns starter this year. It's a reminder that Watson has 1 year left on that contract that he signed with Cleveland. He's played a total of 19 games the last 5 years. Browns have no idea what they're going to get from Deshaun Watson. I think at this point in the offseason, you would have to make Shadur Sanders the favorite to start for the Browns this year. But again, a reminder from Jimmy Haslam that they still are paying Deshaun Watson $46 million this year. It's possible he shows up in great shape and wins that job. And Cowboys coach Brian Schottenheimer was asked yesterday morning about George Pickens, the wide receiver who got the franchise tag in free agency. Schottenheimer gave a good, correct political answer on does he expect Pickens at voluntary offseason work. You know, it's voluntary, but it's a reminder that Pickens is in a situation where we're going to be talking about, can he get an extension from the Cowboys? And if he doesn't get an extension, is he going to be okay playing on the franchise tag, or is this going to be something that drags through the offseason? I don't know, Brian. We've never had an offseason where there was Cowboys contract extension drama. I'm just not sure how we'd handle that on Get Up and the ESPN family of networks.
The sun also rose this morning.
Yeah, you're right about that. I did hear Brian Schottenheimer did say that, look, I'm not putting any pressure on Pickens to be at OTAs or things of that nature. The business stuff will get done. How concerning is that if you don't have Pickens involved in the offseason?
It's always concerning to not have one of your best players involved in the offseason. It's still March, so it's not that big a deal. As we get closer to the season, it becomes a little bit more of a thing. I think it gets very interesting if we get to the NFL draft and a player like a Carnell Tate, the Ohio State wide receiver, drops to that number 12 pick. Because then it becomes, if you're the Dallas Cowboys, who I think are $3 million worth of cap space available, do they entertain maybe drafting Carnell Tate and then seeing if George Pickens becomes a viable trade target? They did it a little bit with CeeDee Lamb when it comes to like drafting him in a surprise fashion. I think that's when it becomes a little bit more of an interesting situation. It's still March. I'm not going to overreact.
And Mike T, listen, I love my Cowboys. And I'm like, okay, now how much do you pay Pickens, especially when you've paid a lot of money for CeeDee Lamb, Mike T?
Yeah, Brian, this is a tough one. Jackson Smith and Jigba just reset the market at $42 million a year. Based on the season that George Pickens had, I'm hard-pressed to think on a long-term extension that he would sign for less than that. Knowing that CeeDee Lamb's at $36 million a year, you may solve one problem, Brian, and create another one literally the next day. So I think this is going to be destined to a really long and arduous summer for both sides. And I totally disagree with Dan O from this standpoint. The Dallas Cowboys have to draft defense, and then another defensive player. Right. They were moribund on defense. They have plenty on offense. Get Pickens signed, and really they have to retool that entire side of the ball.
I don't disagree with you from that philosophy. I'm just sitting here, and if I'm hearing you correct, you think that Pickens' contract would be in the JSN range, so you're talking $40+ million.
Whoa.
I think then it becomes even more real. If that's the case, they'd be paying receivers so much money.
Yes.
I know they need defense, but that's a lot of money devoted to your wide receiver group.
Right. I'm just saying, based on George Pickens' age and production, I'm hard-pressed to think that he would accept anything less than that on a long-term deal.
I just think.
Graz, because I would be flabbergasted if the Cowboys invested that kind of money into George Pickens.
Sorry, you guys were cutting out there. My connection was, so I need to hear the question again. I apologize.
No, I was going to say I'd be flabbergasted. Just the way you're saying that, if you pay that kind of money to Pickens.
Yeah, that would be insane. Like, look, they got him for a third-round pick a year ago. He had a monster year, but look, elephant in the room. I mean, age and production are not the only things on the table when we're talking about George Pickens and what you want to commit to him. You know, there have been questions throughout his career about, you know, inconsistent focus, things like that. I think the Cowboys are very, very happy with what they got from George Pickens on the field last year. I think they'd like to see it again before committing long term. I think the franchise tag is a good resolution here. The only question, of course, becomes, is he going to show up and play? Frankly, I don't know what the benefit for him would be to not show up and play, even if they don't move off the franchise tag.
Yeah, I just think I live in this world, Mike T. We're hearing you say that, and if you're the Cowboys and that 12th pick comes and a Carnell Tate or Jordan Tyson drops some of these really good receivers, I think the conversation has to be, are we better off the now and the future not taking that receiver, paying George, if it's going to be that number, $40+ million over 3 or 4 years, or are we better drafting that guy and then maybe making a phone call to a team like New England or Washington or Tennessee or Cleveland, seeing if we can trade a Pickens and let them decide to pay him? I know there's a lot of parts attached to that, but I think that has to be a conversation had.
Yeah, I understand that.
Yeah.
But two points. One is George Pickens has to sign the tender to be able to trade him. So I don't think he would do anything to help Dallas, number one. And then secondly, Dan, I agree with you. Ideally, you would pay a new receiver in the first round. They have 2 first-round picks to reset that wide receiver salary. But given where they are defensively, I just think it's such a need for them that this is a year they don't have flexibility. And maybe to Roz's point, maybe they just play out, the tender this year. Of course, George Pickens could say, like, well, you're not going to see me until, 24 hours before the first game.
Right.
And we'll see how that goes. And those scenarios, we've all been there, are lose-lose.
Yeah, go ahead, Graz. I'll give you the final word.
Yeah, the franchise tag is an interesting device here. Like, he can't go to off-season workouts unless he signs that franchise tender or a waiver, which if he's going to do that, why not just sign the tender? So he's not officially under contract. So we'll know pretty soon by what George Pickens decides to do in terms of these voluntary workouts, whether he's okay playing on the franchise tag or whether this is going to be an issue that drags close to the regular season.
And I got a feeling it's going to be an issue that drags close to the regular season doing my Cowboys. That's always the norm. All right, coming up, it's back to basketball. No Luka, no problem. How LeBron keeps turning back the clock. Are the Lakers peaking at the right time? We got to discuss that and much more when Get Up rolls on here on the Tuesday.